So there's a disturbing trend right now amongst what I refer to as the social media revolutionaries, and that is to pair the words fascism and liberal in their discourse as if the two are in this beautifully choreographed romantic dance where the liberal is bootlicking the fascist all the way into them having absolute power. And therefore, the only way to defeat rising fascism is to adopt a hard left revolutionary politics. Hey, I'm Julian Walker. I talk about how our political discourse got so deranged and what we can do about it. Now, make no mistake, I am as alarmed as anyone about how this MAGA administration is pushing us towards authoritarianism and destroying any of the checks and balances that maintain healthy democracy. We need no further evidence of this than the masked ICE thugs who are abducting people off the streets with no warrants and without any identification of themselves and no sense of due process and what happens after those people have disappeared. But the idea that the only way to stop this rush towards authoritarian or fascism is through a hard left revolutionary politics that forms no coalitions, that makes no compromises, that is somehow just going to rise up through pure resistance and stop what's happening, I think is misguided for two very important reasons. The first is that once you get off social media, it's actually only a small percentage of the population that really embraces that kind of ultra-leftist politics. So how that group is going to defeat the massive coalition that MAGA has and the military might and the police force support that they have is a pretty tough puzzle. The second problem is that when fascism is invoked, we are therefore hearkening back to the middle of the 20th century. And if we're going to be true to the history and look at what actually defeated fascism, it was a really broad coalition called the Allied Forces. And if we look at the Allied Forces, let's think about this for a moment. Who was the leader of France? Charles de Gaulle, a conservative. Who was the leader of the United States? Roosevelt, a pretty progressive Democrat. And then who was the leader of England? Winston Churchill, another conservative. I personally probably would have disagreed with Charles de Gaulle and Winston Churchill's politics in general, but they were part of the coalition that defeated Hitler. You know who else was in that coalition? Stalin, the Soviet Union. The Red Army played a major role in defeating Hitler. That is about as broad a coalition as you can think of. And then if we look at what happened in the post-World War II period, is that the countries who lost, Japan, Germany, and Italy, were occupied for a brief period of time by the Allied forces and then transitioned and became incredibly stable success stories of the 20th century. You know who didn't become stable democratic success stories? All of the countries that the Soviet Union annexed and made part of their empire after World War II and put under the one-party dictatorship of communism.